around the world. So let's get started. Handing over to Pratyush.
Hello. Hi. Hello everyone. So I am Pratyush, an undergraduate student at IIT Bombay. So I'll start with the event. So like many of you would be hearing about competitive programming for the first time. So what is it? So a close analogy would be like solving mathematical puzzles, which you would have done in your childhood, I guess. So it's basically creative problem solving using various algorithms and data structures. So what it involves is that you are given a problem statement and participants write code to solve it. So how are your programs evaluated? The code you write must obey some time and memory limits, and it should produce correct outputs over various test cases to get the accepted verdict. So often some test cases are visible given to you so that you can better understand the problem, and some test cases are hidden which are used afterwards for evaluation. So the next question would be like, why should you do competitive programming? How will it help you? So like a few incentives can be that it helps you become a better coder. You learn the ability to debug your code and others' code efficiently, which will help you even if you are writing codes for other purposes like for software development, etc. So like competitive programming not only helps in competitive programming, it helps in other aspects of coding as well. You use you get used to logical thinking required to solve complicated programs. Having practiced CP, you get confidence to write small programs in a limited time frame. This provides you of writing codes for even larger systems. So if you are comfortable enough with writing small programs, you won't find it hard to write big systems code. And most importantly, it makes you a desirable candidate for most of the companies. Since most competitive since most companies use competitive programming problems as hiring tools in their screening tests and technical interviews. So, excuse me. So, doing CP has many advantages. So, here I would show you a sample interface. This is how a CP platform looks like. So, I have given the example of lead code interface. It is often used by candidates to prepare for coding tests and interviews. It has problems which companies have asked in previous years as well. So here is the problem description. So it basically tells you about the problem and what you are required to solve. Then you are given some samples, some input and some output and the explanation corresponding to them. So this helps you to understand the problem better. And on the right, you can code up your solution. A variety of languages are allowed. After you code up, you can submit your solution to get a variety of verdicts like accepted, you can get wrong answer, you can get time limit exceeded, you can get memory error, and so on. So having talked about the basics of CP, let's try out a sample program. So here it is. So you are given a Fibonacci number and you need to output three Fibonacci numbers, not necessarily different, which sum to this number. So for recap, Fibonacci numbers are the numbers of the following form, which obey this recurrence. Fn is equal to Fn minus 1 plus Fn minus 2. And they're defined by F0 is equal to 0 and F1 is equal to 1. So they go on like 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. So you can take some time to think about it. Feel free to type in the chat or you can unmute yourself and speak if you have any ideas.
I would like to go.
Yeah, sure, yes.
I can say that I have tried this problem several times, and then doing it using recursion is really helpful, and it's also like
Yeah.
concise and pretty understandable code. So using recursion can help.
Yes, yeah. So you need to output three Fibonacci numbers which sum to a Fibonacci number. So like
Um,
you are given that, yes, go ahead.
yeah, so we can probably return like um, we can have like an input which accepts like the amount of Fibonacci numbers we want, then we can probably keep returning the number itself plus the plus the next input, which is going to be 1 minus the current number. So when we keep adding that, we get the sum, and that's how probably I would do it.
Yeah, so you are like exactly right. So you basically, if you want to express this as a sum of k numbers, so you will write it as fn minus 1 plus then fn minus 2 expressed in k minus 1 numbers. So yeah, basically that was it. So here we took an example of k equal to 3, where we need to write a Fibonacci numbers as sum of only 3 numbers. So you can just go ahead and you can break up fn minus 1 into two parts, which is fn minus 2 plus fn minus 3. So this way you'll have fn is equal to the sum of these three numbers. So you can print fn minus 1 two times and fn minus 3 one time. So I've attached the link also so you can code it up yourself. So Pranav was right. So here's just a dummy program to show how to find the nth Fibonacci number. So here we keep an array A where AI denotes the ith Fibonacci number, and we just loop till n, and we keep on computing and storing the Fibonacci number using the relation fn is equal to fn minus 1 plus fn minus 2 already described. So here is how it goes like this. It accepts integer n, then a0 is 0, a1 is 1 as we have defined before, and then we use this recurrence to calculate ai given ai minus 1 and ai minus 2. And then we can return the nth Fibonacci number on the n minus 1th Fibonacci, whatever is desired. So yeah, this was a like basic problem. So mostly CP problems are like this only. They are basic logical problems which just test your understanding. So moving on, many people who hear about competitive programming for the first time and are even enthusiastic to start it, find it hard to actually get started. So here are like some steps which can help you get started. So first of all, you must understand the basics of writing programs, like what is a variable, what is an array, what is a pointer. You can understand some basics of how functions work, how recursion works. After that, you can just start practicing some basic problems, implementation problems from various competitive programming sites. So I list some competitive programming sites also afterwards. So these don't require much thinking. They just check your coding skills and how comfortable you are at writing codes. So having getting acquainted a bit, you can start participating in contests and all. You can also, like while participating in contest, your code needs to obey some time and memory limits. So it's helpful if you understand the complexity analysis, the space and time complexity analysis, like how much time your program would take, what is the complexity of your program, how much space your program would take. Like if you're declaring a one-dimensional array of size n, or if you're declaring a two-dimensional array of size n into n, which would be n square. So learning various data structures or STL in your language like map, vectors, arrays, etc. Almost all languages provide these things, so they can help you a bit. So take part in contests. So like basically the competitive programming contests involve people competing from all around the globe to solve some problems in a limited time. This is what makes competitive programming actually fun. So you get to compete with other people, you get a rank afterwards, you see how many problems you solve in how many times. And often it's advisable to form peer groups so that you can discuss amongst yourself problems, solutions, and your preparation strategies. You can help your friends in debugging your codes. If you get stuck at a problem, you can discuss with your friends. You can explain your solution to them and they can help you debug your codes. So it's often helpful to find peer groups to interact with and to discuss problems with. So like here also at our college, when I used to do competitive programming, I used to do competitive programming in my school days as well. So I had some seniors, they used to help me, we used to discuss and exchange problems amongst ourselves. So that actually helps a lot. So here is a compiled list of resources I have prepared. These contain steps to get started, and these contain some references and tutorials along with some problems you can solve based on each topic. So you can build upon them. Like remember, this is just a guide to get started. Feel free to deviate from it and explore other problems and resources. So you don't need to stick to one particular guide for your competitive programming journey. Once you get started, once you can solve some problems, you can just explore on the internet. There are a bunch of tutorials available for different topics. There are different problems available. There are different sites which have a lot of variety of problems. So maybe you are wondering whether there is some restriction on any language you can use in competitive programming or in the coding test which companies take. So there isn't any restriction. Like the companies which take competitive tests and also like in the interviews and all, they usually allow variety of programming languages. So if you are already familiar with the programming language, you can continue using that only. But if you wish to start a new language, so like my advice would be to pick up a new, if you need to pick up a new language, you can use C++ or Python. It is easier to pick up, like since they have simple syntax and all. Yeah, so one person asked, can you share the link? So I'll be like sharing the slides afterwards so you can like then see the link. Okay, so a crucial factor at getting good at CP, like other fields, is practice. So like you would have heard, practice makes people perfect. So a recommended approach by me would be like this. Like first you should learn a topic or an algorithm which you want, and then you should solve a problem based on it. Then after solving that problem, you can see related problems and you can try to solve them as well. If you're not able to solve, say, some related problem to a problem which you have already solved, then you should go ahead and read its solution. And then in the solution, you'll find many topics which were important in that problem, and mostly you weren't familiar with those topics, so you couldn't solve those problems. So you can then go ahead and read about those topics. So you can keep on repeating this. So this serves as a good way to get started and to practice competitive programming. Also, if you aren't able to solve a problem and you end up reading its solution, do code it up once to ensure that you have understood it well. Like more coding would never harm you. The more comfortable you are with coding, the faster you will be able to solve problems. So like generally in interview tests and in the contests involving competitive programming problems, there is a specific time constraint given to you, say 2 hours or 3 hours, and then you have a bunch of problems, 6 7 problems, and you need, and the more number of problems you solve, the higher score you get, and then you are ranked based on your scores. So if you are able to solve more problems, then you'll get a better rank and you'll perform well in the test. So as I mentioned before, there are various sites available on which you can practice. So one of the site is LeetCode. I showed you the example as well of the portal. So LeetCode is best for placement and internship purposes. It contains questions by tags. You can search questions by tags. You can search for a topic and the list of questions would show up. You can also see the companies which asked related questions. So you can search for a company and the questions asked by that company would also show up. So LeetCode is pretty good for practicing for internships and placement purposes. Then there are some other sites. There's a site Codeforces. It contains a quality of problems and it hosts regular contests. So participating in contests gives an exposure to wide variety of problems and it helps you identify your weak topics. So you can build up on that, on those topics. So I would recommend like participate in as many contests as possible. Then there is CodeChef site and there is HackerRank site also. So CodeChef site also contains many tutorials and resources on some problems. And almost all these sites have problems and then they have the editorials as well. So if you can't solve a problem, you can just go ahead and look up at the editorial. So like after getting started, where can you code up your solutions? So you can use IDs for writing code. So here are some online IDs. So online IDs like ID1, CodeChef ID, they don't require you to download anything on your laptop and they are easy to use. So you can just type in id1.com or you can click on this link and then you'll be taken to the website. So there you can type in your code, and you can also like run your code, and you can test it with various inputs, and you'll be shown the output your program gets on running against that corresponding input. So then there are other IDs like Vim, Sublime Text, Codeblock. So these are different depending on the platform which you'll use in your laptop. So these can be helpful if like you frequently code up and you don't have a internet connection. So you can download these IDs and then you can run it in your laptop as well. So you don't require an internet connection if you've downloaded these IDs. So now let's try an interesting problem. So here is a problem. It is a problem from a recent contest at Codeforces. So the problem goes like this. An elephant decides to visit his friend. It turns out that the elephant's house is located at point 0 and the friend's house is located at point X on the coordinate line. So in one step, the elephant can either move 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 steps forward. So you need to determine what is the minimum number of steps the elephant needs to take in order to get to his friend's house. So you need to reach from 0 to X using minimum number of steps. And the step sizes which you can take are 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So again, if anyone would like to share their ideas, feel free to do so, like on chat or by unmuting yourself. So I'll give you some time to think about it. So like you can try some examples of X. So like suppose X is 8, then how would you go? You would take a step of 5 and then you would take a step of 3. So in 2 steps, you would
Yeah,
reach 8.
I would put two condition. If
Yeah.
I would divide x by 5 and check the remainder, and the
Yeah.
question too. Like okay, like integer part of the question, and like if it's x को मैं ऐसे लिख सकता हूँ ना 5n plus something, और वो 5 से छोटा ही
Yeah.
होगा तो n plus 1 वो total number of steps हो जाएंगे.
So suppose X is 8, then you'll write 8 as 5 into
5n
1
plus
plus
3.
3.
Yeah, तो total
So the
steps n
number
plus
of
1 हो
steps
जाएंगे.
would be, yes, so the
तो
total step
1
would be
plus
n
2
plus 1. And
2.
if it's exactly divisible, like suppose X is 10,
10
then you
to
can
2,
write 10 as
5
5
into
into
2.
2 plus 1, so 2. Yeah, so like that was the correct idea. So basically the idea is like you take as many steps of length 5 as possible. So once you use as many steps of length 5 as possible, you'll end up with a distance less than 5. So then you take up that step. So hence the number of steps would be x by 5 if x is divisible by 5. So like if x is 15, then you just take 3 steps of length 5. And suppose x is say 17, then you take 3 steps of length 5, you reach 15. And then from 15 to 17, you take a step of 2. So it would be floor of x by 5, like he mentioned. When you write x equal to 5k plus 5n plus k, then the value of n is the floor of x by 5 and plus 1. So you can try out this problem as well. The problem is name is elephant and the link is attached here. So what we discussed was this was an example of greedy algorithm. So basically greedy algorithm is like we greedily take on as many steps of maximum length as possible. We keep on taking steps of length 5 and then we keep on taking steps of length 4. So this is a greedy algorithm in which we take steps greedily. So now consider a variation. Suppose only these step sizes are allowed 1, 4, and 5. So you can only take steps of length 1 or steps of length 4 or steps of length 5. So would the greedy algorithm of taking as many 5 length steps, then as many 4 length steps, and then steps of length 1 work in this case? So take a moment to think about this. Or if you think that it won't work, so then could you come up with the value of x so that it doesn't work? The greedy algorithm doesn't give the minimum number of steps for a given value of x, whereas you can reduce the steps using some other algorithm?
Yeah, I guess greedy algorithm will not work if x is 8. Let's say we take one step of 5, then remaining value is 3. Then we cannot take step 4. Then we got the option of taking 3 steps of 1. So that way we need to take 4 steps. But if we choose 4 step as a first option, then we can reduce it to 2. But right now I don't have any algorithm to implement that, but I'll think of it actually.
Yeah, but your idea is correct. So like the greedy algorithm won't work. So that's correct. So like I also had this example only, like consider x equal to 8. Then according to the greedy algorithm, what you will do is you will take step of 5, the maximum step size which is possible. Then you are left with 3. So now you can either take step of 1, 4 or 5. So since only 3 distances left, you can't take steps of length 4 and 5. So you take step of length 1, then you again do that, and then you again do that. So you end up taking 4 steps. But whereas the optimal would be like you take 2 steps of length 4 only. So this way you will end up taking 2 steps only. So greedy algorithm doesn't always work. So what one generally uses is to one uses dynamic programming to solve such kind of problems. So then there you like you construct an array where steps of I is the minimum number of steps required to reach I starting from 0. So then you can construct a recurrence like step of I is minimum of 1 plus step of I minus 1, comma 4 plus step of I minus 4, comma 5 plus step of I minus 5. That means you either take a step of 1 and then you need to cover the remaining I minus 1 using optimal steps, or either you take a step of 4 and then you cover the remaining I minus 4 using optimal steps, or either you take a step of 5 and then you cover the remaining I minus 5 steps optimally. So you can take the minimum of all these three cases. So it's kind of recursion. So you can try that out, like to see. It's a very famous dynamic programming problem. So it's often also called minimum coin exchange problem. So here's another problem. Like let's see this. Suppose you are given a matrix A, which is of size n cross m. So we call a matrix good if no adjacent cells contain the same value. And we define two cells are adjacent if they share a side. So you can consider it as a grid where two cells are adjacent when they share the same side. So a matrix is good if the adjacent cells don't have the same value. So you need to find a good matrix B that satisfies the following, that B of I comma j is either A of I comma j or A of I comma j plus 1. So you need to find a good matrix for any such given matrix A. So the only condition is that no two adjacent cells should contain the same value. And the other condition is that the B of I comma j should be A of ij or A of ij plus 1. So you can also interpret it in this way, like you are given a matrix A and you need to convert it into a good matrix. So to convert it into a good matrix, to each element, you can either leave the element as it is, or you can add 1 to that element. And after doing such operations, the matrix should be good. And what it means by good is that no two adjacent elements should be same. So suppose we are given a matrix 1 1, like which contains all ones, like a 2 by 2 matrix which contains all ones. So can anyone think how we will make this a good matrix?
We could like check the parity of a I plus j. Or whenever I plus j is even, we can say that the cell contain the basically that element has to be even, and we can change the parity accordingly because we have the power of adding one. And whenever it is odd,
So
it
how
should be odd. So yeah,
so how
so
will
we can
you
write.
yeah, so how will you convert like 1 1 1 1 to a good matrix using this thing?
So basically, whenever we change, the adjacent cells are defined such that whenever we are changing at least one row or one column, so if we make all the adjacent cells to be of different parity, then basically we would solve it. So if we will first check the I plus jth element, and if it is even, then we'll check the elements parity. If that element is also even, then we wouldn't add any one. But if it is odd, then we can add one to it to make it even. Similarly to the odd one.
So like suppose you are given a 2 by 2 grid which contains all ones. So there are 4 numbers in all. 1, 1, 1, 1. So to make this a good, you'll just like you'll
So
take the
first
opposite two
element
corners
would
and
be,
you'll add 1.
yeah,
So you'll say that the first element I is 0, j is 0. So it is even.
that,
So you want
yeah,
that element to be even. So you'll change 1 to 2. And then
yes,
similarly for the element at the bottom right corner,
first,
you'll also do the same thing.
yeah. And then
Yeah, so that's correct. Like so basically you can look at the matrix as a chessboard. So the parity thing which he said is similar to this only. So suppose you're given a chessboard which has white and black cells. So in a chessboard, no two white cells or black cells are adjacent. Like a white cell is always adjacent to black cells and a black cell is always adjacent to white cells. So you can treat the matrix as a chessboard, and at the positions where the cell is black, you can say that the number should be odd there, and at the cells which are white the number should be even there. So suppose in a chessboard you put up some numbers and you constrain it such that the black cells should contain only odd numbers and the white cells should contain only even numbers. So this way, no two adjacent numbers can be equal in the chessboard, because white is adjacent to black only and black is adjacent to white only, and black has odd numbers and white has even numbers. So you change the grid into that. So I plus j mod 2 equal to 0. This is what he said, that we check the parity of I plus j, and if it's even, we make the number there even. I mean, if it's odd, we make the number there odd. So now the key is that to change a number's parity. Suppose you are given an odd number and you want to make it even, you can just add 1 to it. So to change an odd number to an even number, you can add 1, and vice versa as well. So this way you can add 1 to those numbers which were supposed to be odd but are even, and you can leave the numbers as it is if they satisfy the property already. So like this was actually a relatively hard problem, so this involved some thinking. So this is an example like how solving competitive programming problems is similar to solving mathematical puzzles. So here you play with some parity. So you can code it as well. Here's the link. So like I would like to end by listing some important topics which I find are frequently tested in coding tests and coding interviews. So one topic is dynamic programming algorithm. So a very basic example which we saw for this was calculating the nth Fibonacci number. So we calculated f of n using f of n minus 1 and f of n minus 2. So that was an example of dynamic programming. A similar example would be of this problem which we saw, in only one, in which we need to reach x starting from 0 and only 1, 4, 5 steps were allowed. So similarly, we can use dynamic programming using the recurrence relation, which we talked about earlier. Another important topic and frequently asked topic is the graph traversal algorithms. So basically there are two common algorithms for graph traversals. They are breadth first search and depth first search. So a graph, like many problems, can be modeled as graphs. So suppose you are in a grid and you need to start from one cell and reach to other cell, and there are only specific number of steps you can take, that you can either move up or you can either move down or you can move right or you can move left. So you can model these kinds of things as graphs, and then you can use these graph traversal algorithms. Then similarly, in graphs, we can do many more things. There are shortest path algorithms like Dijkstra and Floyd-Warshall. So like the shortest path algorithm is quite commonly used. So what it says is, like, suppose you are in one city and you want to reach from one place to some other place, and you have some roads connecting different places. So you want to reach from one place to other place in shortest time possible. And you know that taking one road, you know for each road how much time it would take to traverse that road. So you can model this thing into a graph where you can treat the places as nodes and the roads as edges, and the time taken as the weights of these edges. And then you can use shortest path algorithm. So I've attached links to these as well. You can read up these tutorials. And then greedy algorithms are also quite commonly tested. So like we saw a greedy algorithm in which all the steps were allowed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in that, greedy algorithms works quite well. So often greedy algorithm involve use of sets and priority queues, etc. Like they involve some kind of heaps, etc. So that we can solve the problem efficiently. So like these are not the exhaustive list, but these are some topics which are quite important. So you can read up on these topics. The links are attached here. So like that was all I had to say. Thank you for your attention. Please ask any questions if you have. I'll be happy to answer them. Or if you have any, like if you want to discuss any part of the slides earlier. Like how many of you actually like already do competitive programming or have some idea about competitive programming? You can tell something about yourself.
So I can quickly mention that I haven't really participated in competitions like you have, but I have had some experience with having to learn how to code for work, and just using it in the whole job interview preparation process, and just using it for work. So this was very, very helpful. I did want to ask you just to speak a bit more about your experience with either participating in these competitions, or if you have gone for interviews, and if you had to go through the process of coding in those interviews, and what was that like for you?
Yeah, definitely. So like I have been participating in contests from my school days. So like I mentioned earlier, there were some seniors at my school, and we used to together participate. Like there were inter-school competitions conducted at our schools, and then there were problems which we need to solve. So that was quite an interesting activity. And then when I came to college, so like here we got exposed to many other competitions like ICPC, etc. And also this year I am currently in my third year. So we had some interviews and we had some companies coming here to hire students for internships and all. So for that, like we almost all of us went through that process. So it's a standard process. Like the companies first take a screening test, which is basically a coding round, and it is based on some 3 4 problems to be solved in 1 2 hours. And then some companies even in the interviews ask questions about data structures and coding. So I myself use LeetCode a lot during my summer vacations because the internship season was after that. So I practiced on LeetCode. I practiced topic wise. So I like use these topics. I searched topics by topics. I searched dynamic programming and I then solved some problems based on that. I searched graph traversal and I solved problems based on that. Also, like many sites such as Geeks for Geeks, Lead Code, InterviewBit, they contain problems which companies have asked in their interviews. Like often students write about their reviews, how was their interview process and all. So they contain those problems. So going over those problems before the interview process helps a lot because companies tend to repeat these problems. So they can't like ask different problems to different students every time because there aren't it so much. So practicing these problems beforehand helps because even if they are different problems, there are slight variations of these problems only. So if you have already practiced it, it helps a lot. And some companies in interviews, they even asked us to code, like we need to present our screen. They gave us a problem and then we had to code it up live only in the interview. So like giving contest or practicing beforehand helps because it helps us how to think under time pressure. Suppose there's an interview going on, there's an interviewer asking you questions and you have a lot of pressure, you are nervous also. So all these things, if you're prepared beforehand, it helps a lot.
Okay, yeah, that was really helpful. And I have another quick one before anyone else has more questions. So I'd love to know how you stay motivated when you're teaching yourself how to code. So this is outside of either the competition area or outside of a job interview room, but also when you're in that space. So when you are being interviewed by someone or when you are in a competition, how do you what kind of mindset do you go in with, and yeah, how do you prepare yourself for those situations? So this is more personal, more than technical, but I just thought it would be nice to know, and I'm sure everyone would, yeah, just love to know more about this.
So basically to keep myself motivated and encouraged, like we have some, I discuss it with my friends. So I have some of my batchmates, 2 3 batchmates. So we form WhatsApp group amongst ourselves and we discuss problem amongst ourselves. So if we see like 1 2 people solving questions, they share their questions, we read it. So we also feel enthusiastic to solve these problems. So that's how like it becomes fun instead of like a work. We don't treat it as a work which we need to complete. So it becomes fun solving problems together. And while interviews often, like before almost all the interviews, we are quite nervous, and it's often observed that in interviews, like a person can't perform up to his best, like he can't give his best almost every time because there's some anxiety, some nervousness. So I try to keep it as low as possible. So like I prepare beforehand only like a day before the interview, so that I don't have to prepare anything on the day of the interview, because that causes unnecessary stress just a few hours before the interview. So like I prepare myself and I solve problems till the time I get confident enough. So once I'm confident, then I feel a little less nervous about the interviews and all.
Okay. That's really kind of you to share all of this. Yeah, so thanks for answering my question. Does
Thank
anyone
you.
else have any other questions?
Yeah, can you share some tips on debugging? As in, it takes a lot of time and effort. So, any tips on that?
Yes, so on debugging, there are some sample cases which are provided along with the problem. So running that helps a lot. And suppose your sample test case fails, like you are given an input and your program doesn't give the required output. So then you can just manually run your algorithm. Suppose you have thought of an algorithm, you can run it on the input by hand in your mind, and then you can see what the output should come. So like there can be 2 types of fault. There can be some logical fault as well, like you have some different and you have some incorrect logic for the program, and that's why your code is giving wrong answer. Or there can be a bug in your coding, like you wanted to write x plus 5 and you wrote x minus 5. So there are some subtle errors which are very easy to miss, and they cause a high penalty during contest. So basically coming up with test cases is very good for debugging, and more than that, practice makes it easier to debug. So if you practice a lot and you are comfortable with coding, so it becomes easier to debug codes. And also one thing which I follow is, before coding up, like when you read a problem, think about, I always think about the algorithm in detail beforehand only, like how will I implement various things, various algorithms, and I think how I'll write that up instead of just jumping in and writing the code. So once I've thought about how to write the code, then I start writing the code. So it gets easier to write the code. And also, like while writing the code, just I try to stay focused, because if I'm not focused, then some careless mistakes can happen, especially like off by one mistakes can happen, that you wanted to run a loop from suppose 0 to n-1 and you ran a loop from 0 to n. So these are subtle mistakes which are then very hard to catch later on.
I have one question.
Yes.
Which language means you will prefer or you will suggest to practice your coding or you start coding?
So if
Is
you are
I
already comfortable with the language, you can continue using that only, because learning a new language would be like learning a new language, you'll have to learn the syntax and all. But if you need to start learning a language, then I would recommend C++ or Python. So I generally use C++ only. So it's easy, its syntax is easy, and there are many tutorials on net which tell us about how to write different programs in different algorithms in C++. So that's why like C++ is a very commonly used language. So you can get help from other people's, you can get template code for different algorithms. So like there are some algorithms, this BFS, DFS, Dijkstra, they are standard algorithms. So the code is available on net as well. So C++ code is available for them, how to write them and all.
do you recommend any
So
books? Yes, to
like not any such book, like there are some books competitive, like there is a book CLRS algorithms. So you can read up on that book, but instead of reading up books, it's better if you practice problems like topic by topic. And then if you struggle on a topic, you can read about that topic more in detail. So generally in books, they don't talk much about how to program. They talk more about the logic and not and less about the code.
and
But in
I want
actual
to just
coding
add.
contest, coding.
Okay, I will
Hmm.
just want to add about that language question. I asked that particular question because in my work, I we need to use JavaScript or TypeScript, and whatever means like I attend any seminar or webinars or any online platform, I heard about Python. So how to choose between these two? Because I am completely novice to programming. Means, since
Yes.
from last 2-3 months I am uh, means doing that coding stuff. So I'm means quite confused about like I should go for TypeScript, JavaScript, or should I go for Python? It's like this. Can you?
So Java is also like in all contests, C++, Java, Python, they all are allowed. So you can use either of Java or Python. So I think Python would be easier to learn in the start
Yeah,
because syntax
I
of
thought
Python is
so.
very simple.
Yes, I thought so. JavaScript is quite like means little bit hard
Yes, the
for me.
syntax is complicated for Java. Yeah. Like I also
Not
don't, I am also not comfortable with Java. So
not
I
Java.
generally
I
use
was
C++
talking about
and
I,
Python.
JavaScript.
yeah, I just want to add, this is
Oh,
Tushar.
JavaScript.
JavaScript will be used for UI mostly. So whenever you will be doing UI related things, JavaScript is basically used for UI components, and Java is used as a backend language. So Python is also a backend language. All the backend logic will be written in Python, and all the UI stuff is written in TypeScript, and there is Angular JS, and there is
Yes,
JavaScript
Angular.
also. Yeah. So I have a question around book only. So I am a Java programmer actually around. I have been coding around 7 to 8 years now. I have been using Java 11, and there are a lot of things which are abstracted. Like you don't have to go to low level. So all memory management, garbage collection, everything is managed by Java only. And in the latest version of Java, there are streams, so you don't have to even care about threads and everything. So the problem I faced to start with the CP is like, is there any like I was also about to ask any book where I can start with logical steps. So if I go and search by algorithm, there are so many algorithms. Then I get confused like which should I take first, and if I take a harder one, and then that should not lose my interest. So is there any option to getting started logically? so that I can progress like from simple things like understanding the data structure first, or which are the simple algorithms I should go first, and then the complex one. So because randomly searching doesn't give any confidence when we start.
Like this is one thing which I myself also use. So like I've included the link in this slide for that thing. So
Okay.
it has problems by like the difficulty level. So here are easy problems. So these are ad hoc problems. They don't require any algorithm as such. They just
Okay.
require logic. So these problems can be solved as it is. And then there are some algorithms which are from the increasing complexity, like from
Okay.
simple algorithm to complex algorithm. So there's binary search, then there are strings, then there are stacks, queues, greedy algorithms. So these are the simpler kind of algorithms.
Okay.
So like I follow something like this. So there are many such resources available. So one such
Mm.
is this.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll use
So
this
here
link.
you can, yes. So from here
Thank
you
you.
can build up in steps like first
Ye-
simple algorithms and then more complex and complex algorithms.
Yes.
Hey,
Okay.
Pratish, so since we are limited on time, we
Yes.
have certain questions from the chat box. So can I read out the questions and if you could answer them? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
So the first one is like, any specific time during the day which you feel that you'll be able to code better, perform better, or you feel focused, like any
Yes, I think
time
it
during.
would be different for different people. Like some people stay awake late till night, so they can concentrate really good at night because there's no disturbance at all at home or and something like this. So
Yeah.
myself, yeah, I myself also feel like comfortable at night. Like I suppose the time from 9 to 1 at the night, I feel comfortable
Okay.
because like everyone has slept and there's not much disturbance, so I can concentrate better. And it depends
Yeah,
on like how much time. Like I practice every time on that every day during that time only, so I function better during that time.
that's awesome. It's good that you know yourself. Okay, so the next question is, how do you manage your schedule? Like you're in third year, and I'm sure that you have a lot of subjects and assignments and exams. Like everyone has a hectic schedule. So how do you take out time for coding with your friends? Like, do you guys say like, okay, let's do Friday coding or Saturday coding, or like how do you make sure that you guys how much time do you spend coding individually and how much time do you spend coding with your friends?
So yes, generally in weekends we as a friends take out time. So like suppose on Saturday evening or Sunday evening, when we don't have any exams or assignment deadlines, then we as a group participate in contest together. And individual, like I try to take out time during weekdays, like suppose 2 or 3 hours for suppose in 2 3 days in a week. I try to do that. Like yes, during the semester I find less time because there are assignments and courses and all. So that's why when we get vacations like the summer vacations and winter vacations, so then I get ample of time to practice and solve problems.
That's awesome. Okay, so the other question is like, can you share your learning curve? Because I'm sure that a lot of resources that you shared, they have like lots of different kinds of problems. And for a beginner who has not been coding from school, like there are a lot of people who start
Mhm.
coding like in their engineering and things like that. So the learning curve for them is like quite steep. So, have you ever experienced that? Or if you have known your friends who have experienced that, and what have they done to overcome that learning curve?
Yes, I generally find it's hard to pick up like and start competitive programming because they don't know like how what to solve. And initially, like when we get stuck in problems, we get quite frustrated when we are stuck in like for 1 2 hours we are stuck at the same problem. We get frustrated and we want to like give up and leave things. So initially it's a very steep learning curve. Once you get comfortable at solving some basic problem, then it actually gets to become exciting because then you can encounter new problems. When you give contests, there are new problems and you get happy every time you solve a good problem. So that way the initial learning curve is quite steep. So to
Yeah.
encounter that, a good method would be like I myself we practice in groups and also practicing in groups helps overcome this, like when we are discouraged or when we are demotivated. So our friends help us to, like they console us, they motivate us, and then we can discuss our solutions with them. So when we discuss, they point out the problems in our logic or in our code. So that helps a lot in moving ahead.
Yeah, that's really sweet. Okay, so Pratyush, thank you so much. Like we are, I think, almost at our time limit. If anyone else has any other questions before we log off,
Hello.
hi Shayana. Oh, hi Pallavi.
Hi, yeah, Pallavi. I actually wanted to just point to Tushar sir before. I was unable to unmute in time. So I've also been doing competitive programming for quite a while now, and the way I uh, was able to kickstart the journey into competitive programming was actually through HackerRank. So HackerRank has a bunch of courses or like tracks that you can join to level up your coding skills in whichever language of your choice. So you can kick off with C++, or like you mentioned, you've been working with Java for really long. You can kick off with Java, the track, and I'm sure you'll know a lot of the elementary stuff. And there are a lot of tracks for problem solving and algorithms and data structures. So you can pick up each one of them. It has a lot of problems that you can Google and find answers for. So not to understand the logic. And one of the books that actually even Pratyush mentioned, I've just sent it in chat as a link. Introduction to Algorithms by Corman. It's a little bit of a long book and it's very, very, very detailed, but it does take you off from the complete basics of data structures and algorithms and goes into very in-depth and complex data structures. So these two resources, along with the other things that Pratyush mentioned, have really helped me in my journey. And yeah, I just wanted to share those with everyone.
Okay. Thank you, Pallavi. I think that would be helpful.
I also agree, like hacker and contestant tracks are great.
Yeah.
And the book
And I
CLRS is also.
Yeah. And I just wanted to say thank you, Pratyush, for everything that you share with us. I think it's so important for
Thanks.
someone who's starting in this direction to know all these things.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure for me as well. Like it was wonderful.
Okay, great. Lisa, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, sure. Thank you everyone for attending the event. It was really nice, and thank you for keeping it interactive and asking questions and everything. Thank you, Pratyush.
Yeah, thank you,
Thank
Pratyush.
you. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you. So we'll share the slides and the information with everyone. And we hope to see you at our next event and the rest of the events for 2021. Take care and have a good weekend. Bye.
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 Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.